The first thing we need to do is go to TortoiseSVN.net and download the correct version of TortoiseSVN. In order to know which version you need to download, you can go to your computer and then go to Properties, and that will tell you if you have a 64-bit or a 32-bit operating system. So in our case, it's 64-bit, so the one that we're going to be downloading is this. Install it following the wizard, and then reboot your computer when done. I'll pause the video and come back. Once you reboot the computer, the way you know that TortoiseSVN has been installed is because you right-click and you can see the menu for TortoiseSVN. The next thing that you would do is go to VI Package Manager and type SVN. The toolkit that we're installing is the Viewpoint TortoiseSVN toolkit. Things to keep in mind is LabVIEW must be restarted after you install this package. So we already did that and we close LabVIEW. Next time you open LabVIEW, you're going to get request to update your compare and merge tools. So I'll pause the video and come back when that prompt shows up. So this is the message, the prompt that you get. It basically tells you that it's going to configure the diff and merge for the .vi.ctl. So I'm going to say yes. And it's going to do it for VIT, which is a template, the control and the control template. It doesn't do it for project, LV class, or libraries. So I'm going to apply that. What that did is if you go back to one of the folders and just right-click TortoiseSVN settings, you'll see that the Diff viewer was configured automatically for the .type.ctt and .vi and .vit. And the way the toolkit configures it is by setting it to use the C program files National Instrument shared LabVIEW-Compare executable, and then it sets the corresponding arguments. And if you hover over here, basically says percentage base is the base file and percentage mine is going to be the modified file. It does the same thing for the merge tool. So if we go to advanced, same thing, except we're going to be using National Instruments LVMerge. And in this case, merge is a conflicted file. Theirs is the file as it is in the repository. Mine is your own file, and base is the original file without changes. So that's what the toolkit did for us. All right, so now what I'm going to do is create a project just so we have simulating having existing code that we want to start tracking in Subversion. So I'm going to take the template, and we're just going to start with the queue message handler. And I'm going to do next, and this is just going to be, we're just going to call this our demo SVN project. Not very original, but it will do the trick. And for now, I'm just going to put it in the C drive, and we're going to put here a new folder, and this is going to be demo SVN project, and we'll put it in this folder. Okay, and I'm going to do finish, and I'll come back when it's done. So our project has been created. It has the typical QMH template. We have the do something else that works, and the block diagram is the QMH. So we'll use this as a starting point. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a repository. Normally you would do this either by a third-party service provider that will host your repository, or my recommendation is that you do it on a network, on a map drive. I don't recommend doing it directly on the same computer that you're using, because if something happens to your computer, you're also going to lose your repository. And it's also advisable that if you are going to be creating a repository, that you back up the repository as well often. So we're going to put here our SVN repository, and these, I'm just going to call these our demo, and this is going to be SVN repository. All right, and I'm going to right click, go to TortoiseSVN and say create repository here. One thing that I recommend that you do is to create the folder structure. Even if you don't think you're going to be doing branches and tags, it's easier to later do them if you already have the directory structure. Also, if you decide that you want to move to distributed source code control later, some of the migration tools make it easier if you already have that structure. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to start the repo browser. This is the last time that you go to the repo browser. This just shows that your folder got created on your mapped network drive and that you have your branches, folder, tags, and trunk. The one that we're going to be using is going to be the trunk. So I'm going to be copying this, and I'm going to do OK. From now on, there's really no need to go to the repo browser unless you're having problems. Now, this created everything that we need for the hook, and if you go to the README text, you're going to see this is a repository. Do not add, delete, or modify files here. So this is the last time you go in here. From now on, we're going to be doing everything from above. So if I go here, you see here the repository got created. All right, so we're going to go now to my original project. Here it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this guy and I'm going to tell it that I want to import it into the repository. And you can see the icon, it's a little arrow going into the repository. So I'm going to do import. Because I just created and had copied the address, the tool is smart enough to just put it there for the URL. If you were using a third-party hosting service, you would put the address there. And I'm just going to put here initializing repository with QMH template project. All right, or project from template, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do OK. Okay, this is going to be adding the entire code of the project. So I'm going to pause and then come back when it's done. All right, so we're done. We're going to do OK. Now I'm going to just rename this guy as old, and then I'm going to get rid of it once I have verified that indeed I got everything where I wanted it. So I'm going to create a new folder. In this case, it's going to be my demo project. And I'm going to call these working copy. Okay, and I'm going to right click, and now I'm saying SVN, we are going to be doing a checkout. And you see the arrow is now coming from the repository to my computer. Again, it already has on the clipboard the name of the repository. I want to put it on the working copy. I'm going to say OK, and it's going to add everything onto that folder. And there we go. And if I open, now I have these nice overlays here that indicate that everything is up to date. And if I open, if I open the project, you'll see that it is the same project. And because we installed the toolkit from Viewpoint, we also have the overlays on the project itself. Now let's do some cleaning up now of my folder structure here. One thing I want to do is get rid of the old, because now I know I'm comfortable knowing that everything is there. And the other thing we're going to do is the .aliases files and the .lvlps do not need to be part of the SVN because they're going to be changed every time. So I'm going to say on version and add to ignored list. And we're going to do it by extension. And the other thing that we are going to be doing is separating source code from compile code. There's two places where you're going to do that. One place is on the options menu, and you go to environment, separate compile code from new files. And the other place that you need to do it is at the project. Now, it is important that everyone in your team does this. Otherwise, you end up with, okay, so I said mark selected items. I'm going to say mark select items. If one of the members of your team doesn't do that, when they create new VIs, they're going to be adding VIs that are not separating the source code from the compile code. And we're going to check that. Okay, so we're all set, and we're going to do a save all. And I'm going to close. And I can also commit directly from the project using the toolkit, but for now we're just going to do it here. And we're also going to add the lvlps to the ignored list. So we don't want to keep that in the repository, and the reason for that is because these two files get created every time the project gets opened, so there's no need to keep them in the source code control. So we're going to do a commit. And our commit, I can make sure that everything is selected here. And what we're going to say here is we're adding the aliases and lvlps to the ignore list. They don't need to be in SEC, and set the project to separate source code from compile code. All right, and that's adding it, and everything is committed. So we now have everything we need there for be able to bring another computer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bring a virtual computer, another virtual machine, and this one is going to be white, and the log person in this computer is Chris. So this will let us see different users in Subversion. So this other computer, we had to do the same setup, and now we can go and do a checkout. First, let's make sure that we do have the map driver there, and there it is. We have our repository there. So I can go back to the C drive and put here my, and I can name it differently. This could be, you know, Chris demo working copy. It doesn't have to have the same name. And what I'm going to do is do the same things we did before. SVN checkout, and it's coming from the same place, and I'm going to do OK. And we're getting all the files there. Okay. If I go in, now we have all our overlays, and you can see that the lvlps and the aliases were not added because we added them to the ignore list. Also, I can right-click here and tell it to show me the log, and we can see all the changes that I made, right? Fabiola made on the other repository. Okay, so we're going to open it, and then we're going to have fun changing a couple of things and then showing them on the other computer. Because it's the first time that I'm using it, I'm getting the same question that I got before. So, and you see that the aliases got added. All right, so let's go and open the main BI. And we are going to make my favorite change to the QMH, which is, and this is a subject for another video and another story. I'm going to remove the register event out of here, and this is the modification that I'm going to make. So let me pause the video and come back when it's done. All right, so this is done, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to do a Control-Shift-E so it shows it to me on the project, and now it has the icon overlay. So I can go here and from the menu, right-click menu, do an SVN Commit, and here we're going to say removed reference register user event. All right, so that's what we did, and I'm going to do OK, and that's going to commit it. All right, if I go to the other computer, to the blue computer, and I open the project right now, one of the things that you're going to see is that all the arrows are, all the overlays are green, and it's because this only shows that from the last time that I had contact with the repository, nothing has changed. One thing that the toolkit does is that you can go to the SVN tools and you can check for modifications, and it will let you know if there are any modifications on the current computer, but it doesn't actually do a check with the repository itself. Now, I was not clicking on the one that we were using. If I check this one, that's the one that we just modified, and I go to check for modifications and I check the repository, I can actually see that that it was modified by Chris, and this is a good way for me to know that I should probably not touch that BI because he's working on it. So anyway, we're going to go back to Chris's computer and do one more check here. So I changed that, and then I now need to clean up my mess. So I'm going to pause the video and finish those changes, and then we'll go back to the other computer to do the update. Here we go. So now we just save this guy. Control-Shift-E to find it on the project, and I can do my commit. So I will do my commit and just say clean up broken wires. And one thing that you can do too is you can go to recent messages and you can actually copy messages that you had done before. Remove the register user event. So I'm going to do OK, and we are all set. So if I go to the project, and let me save all, and let's go and do an explore. If I go to the Windows Explorer, you're going to see here, I can right click on it and say show log, and it's going to show me that all the modifications that Chris did and then the modifications that I did. So we're going to go back to the blue computer, and on the blue computer we are going to do a modification to main just so I can show you how to use the compare. And we're back on the blue computer, and now we're just going to be doing an SVN update, and I'm updating all the files, and we get an update. So right now, if I open the main, you will see that it has the new code with the reference not being there. So even though I'm in a different computer, I have the same code. One of the things that I like about Subversion is that it's like having an undo. If you wanted to go back, you can go to the update to revision and show log, and we can even go to the beginning of time before we did source code separation source code from compile code. And when you open the project, see there, that's, I went to revision 1. So revision 1, the project didn't even exist. So the only two files that are there are aliases and lvps. So I can tell it, okay, no, never mind, I didn't want to go that back. I can go to update to revision and go when we initialize the repository with the template project, and it adds everything. And now I have the project there, and the project, if I go to the main has that wire there, and this BI still has a registration inside. So these are this is one of the really nice things about Subversion. All right, so now let's do and go to the update to the latest revision. So I'll go back here and then just do SVN update, and we have everything we needed, and we should be back to not having that file, that registration. So if I go back, the registration is gone. Okay, so let's just make a small change. Let's add a little heartbeat here. So if I put there and just call a heartbeat, I'm going to stop the video, pause the video, and come back when it's okay. So we added a little heartbeat there, and the code was added here. If I save it and go back to the project, we're going to get the icon overlay is going to change to show me that it's no longer up to date, or there have been changes made, there are modifications pending. I can go and do a diff with previous, and what that's going to do is that's going to call the LabVIEW compare, and it's going to show me what were the differences between the code as it is now and the old code. So I added one event structure. So this one had to do something, and then after that, number 1 was do something else, where this one do something, but now number 1 is a timeout. And if you start clicking on this, it's going to be guiding you through all the differences. There's the 500 there. So it's kind of like when you were a kid and, you know, trying to find the differences between two pictures. And the more complicated the code, the harder this is, because you have different cases on the event structure, right? So that's if you just want to see the differences. Let me just do a commit of this guy, and then we'll go to okay, so I'm going to do okay, and we're going to go to the other computer. And what we'll do in the other computer is we're going to show what happens when you don't talk and you don't do an update and you start making changes. So if I do a change, and we can do a very small change here. Let's just let's just add also a timeout. But we're not going to do anything with this timeout. I'm just going to do a timeout and just add it there. And we just won't do anything with the timeout. It's just added there. Okay? So I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to try to commit it as soon as it tells me that there are changes pending. And I'm going to do a commit. And remember, the other computer, the blue computer, Fabiola, already did a commit. So let's see what Chris does. So we're just going to see added timeout case. So when I do that, it's going to tell me that it failed because I'm not up to date. So I already know this is a good notice that something is going to happen. So I'm going to say, okay, update. So I'm going to update, and now I'm going to have a conflicted demo, a conflicted file. So I'm going to do okay. What this does is, if we go to the folder, it creates a main and a main R5 and R6 with the different revisions. And in order to fix it, I right-click, go to TortoiseSVN, edit conflicts. Because the toolkit configured our TortoiseSVN to use the LabVIEW and the LVMerge is opened. And here I can decide which version I want to keep. This is what is going to be kept at the end of the day, and right now it has the 500, but it's not wired. So you can go each one of them and then decide what is the one that you're going to keep. You can say choose theirs, or you can say to choose base, and basically you can start checking which is the version that you want to keep. So let me pause the video and I'll come back when all the changes are done. I always get confused with the yours and theirs, and basically what I do is, after I have done all my selection, I just make sure that the one that I selected ends up having the code that I want. And in this case, we ended up having here a little bit more modification that we wanted. You can also decide to say, I'm going to ignore completely all the changes, and I'm just going to take whatever the other person did. So that's also a possibility. And this just also shows that in general, it's just better to make sure that not two developers are working on the same code at the same time. Okay, and once you have this, you have what you want, then you can say, okay, close. Do you want to save the merge BI? You say yes. And then the next thing is to go to Subversion and then tell it that that mark it as resolved, that you have resolved your conflicts. And then before you do a commit, you just verify that the code indeed still works. And we do have the heartbeat, so we're good. And maybe we would have to do some cleanup here, but the code is now done. So I can choose to commit this if I want it. So if I want to commit this, now I can say, after resolving conflicts. In general, my recommendation is to stay away from using the merge and having two developers working on the same code. It's also advisable to just have one of the developers kind of like own the project. There's also another thing that the toolkit provides, which is getting a lock, and that way you prevent others from modifying your code. So let me know if you would like to see more videos showing this type of stuff. The next video will be TortoiseSVN using Tortoise HG, which is Mercurial, and then we'll do one with Git. Thank you.